But I'm so glad you could join us this evening. My name is Melody O'Neill. I'm the Associate Director of High School Admission here at Landmark School. And I am getting very close to entering my 30th year here at Landmark. Been here 29 years now. And I have had the opportunity and the fortune to work at our high school campus for a number of years. I taught in our expressive language program. I taught our literacy tutorials. I got to live on campus for a while in one of the girls' dorms. So I've had some residential experience and again, tutoring and working with the great the classes with the expressive language kids. And I've also been in the admission office now for a long time. And so I've worn a number of hats, but really just loved all of my years here, which is why I've been here for so long. So it's a little bit of my background. I also have two wonderful LD dyslexic kids myself. I have a daughter who who's now in college, but she's attended a couple summer programs here way back. And my son, who is a current junior here at Landmark High School, who started off at our elementary middle school, actually started summer programs as well, and then started full-time in 6th grade, and he's now a junior. So I'm also a parent and, have personal experience in that regard with Landmark as well. So I'm also happy to answer questions wearing that hat and from that lens as well as we go through. So we're going to talk about who we are as a school, our profile, a little bit about our admission process tonight. We're going to talk about what we do well as a language-based school, what makes us unique and special, our day-to-day, our academic programs. We're going to talk a lot about, again, what's effective with our teaching methodology here. And we're going to talk about all the fun stuff too, all the extracurriculars and what makes for a great high school experience here at Landmark and all the fun stuff that the kids get to experience so that they're not missing out on what they should get to experience during high school. So that's going to be our presentation tonight. And we're going to talk a little bit about our summer program too, because we have an amazing 4-week summer program. And some of you that are joining us this evening might be interested specifically in that. Some of you may be looking at or thinking about the idea of both summer and school year. And please know, as we do talk about our profile and our application process, that really applies to both. So, that's consistent. It's really the same profile and application for both summer and school year. Okay, so let's get started. And the first thing that, let's see, hopefully this will click through. My clicker is not working right now, so hold on one second. Here we go. The first thing I wanted to do was just quickly mention, this is something our headmaster, Josh Clark, who joined us a couple of years back, has really spent a lot of time thinking about and working on, is really, our vision for Landmark for the future and where we're going and what we really want to enable our students to be, what we're preparing them for the future, because that really is what it's about. We're teaching our students, yes, to read and write and all of these amazing skills that we're teaching them, but what are we trying to empower them with for when they leave here? What do we want them to leave here with? And so we've kind of come up with this, vision statement for our kids and this goal that, we are going to foster our students with the power of learning differently and giving them this ability to think independently and solve creatively and really be prepared for this ever-changing and interconnected world, because that's what's happening out there in the world, and this all the technology and AI and everything that's happening out there. And so we've kind of come up with this portrait of a graduate where we want to really instill in our students this ability to have this level of self-awareness and self-advocacy, literacy and communication, effective problem solving and perseverance, and empathy and perspective. And so around that, we've really created these landmarks values wheel, where we're really, again, promoting this exploration around creativity and learning, this character development with respect, integrity, kindness, and empathy, and this empowerment with growth, and confidence and independence with our students. So that's important. And then going way back, so that's the forward thinking, and with the portrait of a graduate, and then taking you back, all the way to kind of like where we started in the inception of Landmark back in 1971, over 50 years back. Dr. Charles Drake, when we were, less than 40, 45 students, or around 45 students total. There wasn't really a school for these brilliant dyslexic thinkers, and Charles Drake was one of them. And he really wanted to start a school for students who thought like he did, where the traditional approach to education really didn't work. These large classroom settings, and where students really needed to think within the box. And he thought outside the box and really wanted to disrupt that status quo and kind of come up with a new innovative approach towards learning, that could really be customized to these creative thinkers that just needed a different approach towards learning. And again, there really wasn't a school at the time that did that. So he founded Landmark, again, just over 40 students at the time. And our high school campus was the main campus at that time. There was one main building, and we've expanded a lot over the years. We are now two campuses, with the elementary middle school a few miles down the road with about 175 students. Our high school campus now has 300 students, with about half of our students commuting as day, and about half of our students living here as boarding students. So we've grown a lot in size over the years, but our mission and profile has really stayed the same. And we're going to talk more about that. So that was the vision of Dr. Charles Drake, and Landmark has really kind of stayed that path and that course. Of course, bringing in technology and changing over the years as the world has changed around us, but really supporting these brilliant dyslexic language-based thinkers, and kind of celebrating how these students learn differently and need to be taught in these creative, innovative ways. Okay, so in terms of who our students are, let's define that a little bit more and understand a little bit more of that language-based profile. In terms of the character traits, let's talk about that a little bit first. We really do have these bright students here at Landmark that are really well adjusted overall, resilient and curious and eager to learn. Students come to Landmark, maybe they've struggled in past educational settings, maybe they feel frustrated, maybe they've developed some anxiety because of the difficulties with their past school struggles. But despite all of that, they really still want to succeed. They want to learn. They want to feel successful. And they are overall still well adjusted. And they just want to be in an environment where they can learn and succeed. So those are some of the character traits of our kids. And they do fall within this umbrella of a language-based learning disability. And so what does that mean specifically in terms of the types of labels or diagnoses that you may see within a private neuropsych eval or psychoed school testing? How do we define that here at Landmark in terms of who we know we can support well here? So let's talk about that. About 70% of our kiddos at the high school campus are pretty classically dyslexic. So that means these students have a phonologically based reading disability. They struggle with the word attack skills for decoding, encoding, that ability to read words accurately and fluently. Sometimes we have students come to Landmark who maybe are reading okay. Maybe they struggle more with organization for written output. They have a disorder of written language, dysgraphia. They may really have a hard time getting their thoughts down on paper in a clear, concise way. So that's a good number of our students here at Landmark. Um, about a third of our students at the high school struggle with language output. So that may be either orally or again with writing. A lot of our students have difficulty with that word retrieval and oral formulation of language. They understand language coming in, the comprehension of language, but that word retrieval and that ability to expand and formulate their thoughts might be difficult for them. Executive function is the really big buzzword. Everybody sort of struggles here with aspects of executive function. If you have a learning disability, that really tends to go hand in hand. When we talk about executive function, we're talking about that planning and organization, the time management, task initiation, a shift from one thing to another, study skills, previewing of relevant information, note-taking skills, test-taking strategies, research writing, all of those things. So, the executive function piece and the strategies, it's really embedded in everything we do here across curriculum. And that's just as important as learning how to read and write is kind of, developing good executive function, study skills, organizational skills, time management skills. Again, that's a key part of everything we're doing here. Over half of our students do have ADHD as well. It's a very common comorbid diagnosis with the dyslexia and LD is ADHD. For most of our students, it is the inattentive type with the need to sort of just be, that refocusing. Sometimes it's the combined type. When it becomes problematic is if it's more of that hyperactive where it's more of a behavioral issue where it could be disruptive towards others in the classroom. We're not therapeutic and we can't really support kids that have more primary behavioral needs. So it's not really a behavioral issue for our students here at Landmark, but more of that inattentive type where the students need some of that rephrasing and refocusing within the classroom. And then for a lot of our students, they tend to struggle more with that working memory and or processing speed. So that ability to hold on to a lot of information at once that you then have to do something with. And the processing speed really refers to that ability to scan information quickly, visually, or motorically output information quickly. So that's really it. It's a very narrow piece of the pie, tell families, where our students demonstrate difficulties. It really is kind of the reading, the writing, the expressive output, the executive function, the attention, the working memory processing. That's it. But our students are bright and well adjusted, and these are the main areas of difficulty. Let's talk about who we can't support well, because that is very important to understand also, because of course you want your student to attend a program that's going to be able to support them well, so that they can make effective progress and gain the tools and strategies that they need to be successful. You don't want them to be in a program where they're going to struggle and not have not being taught the right way. That's not going to be effective. So let's talk about who we may not be suitable for. If a student demonstrates primary difficulties with intellectual deficits, difficulties with big picture thinking, reasoning, problem solving, or visual spatial integration or comprehension deficits, we're really not going to be the right fit. We need to teach to those strengths at Landmark. We rely on those strengths for students to access curriculum here. So we would really fall short in giving a student what they need. Um, so that we would not be the right fit. If the student, again, demonstrates primary emotional and or behavioral difficulties, they would require more of a therapeutic placement, and we really don't have those supports in place here. If a student has a primary diagnosis on the spectrum, ASD, they tend to need different supports than what we offer here at Landmark, and our teachers just aren't trained to support students with that diagnosis. Or nonverbal learning disability. Those students, again, demonstrate difficulties in areas that are really kind of the opposite side of the coin than our students with language-based difficulties. And if a student has more complex communication disorders that are more primary receptive deficits, which is like comprehension of language coming in, and or social pragmatic deficits, which is like reading the room and picking up on nonverbal cues and that ability to kind of interact with same age peers, students that need more direct instruction on social skill scripting and knowing how to interact during unstructured times. Again, our teachers aren't trained to support that, and that's not what we do well at Landmark School. So that would be a different school with different programming and different instruction than what we do here. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Again, whether you're applying for summer or school year, that's our profile. And let's talk just for a minute about the application process and what we need. It's one application. There is a place for you to indicate if you're applying for school year or for summer, or both. You would fill out the application for school year and then check box that you're also applying for summer as well. We do require testing within 3 years. It can be private, neuropsych, or school psychoed. And one of the most important elements is the cognitive testing, which we specifically ask for the WISC. That's the Wessler Intelligence Scale for Children. And if a student is 16 or older, they may have been given the WACE, which is the adult version. The WISC on the WACE looks at 5 areas of cognition. And for our students at Landmark, the areas of strength, and I've kind of mentioned this, the verbal comprehension, fluid reasoning, which is that big picture thinking, and that visual spatial integration. And these are the areas where our students really demonstrate strengths. Again, they can problem solve, they are big picture thinkers, they really benefit from the visuals and the hands-on, and they understand information coming in. Where we tend to see the discrepancy cognitively on the WISC is with that working memory and or processing speed. That's typically a bit lower than their comprehension, reasoning, and visual spatial. The other pieces of testing would include academic achievement testing. That's where they're typically measuring for like reading, writing, and math. And then we also ask for a measure of what we call psychosocial adjustment, which are like rating scales that are typically completed by parent, teacher, and then usually a self-report by the student. And those are like questions and rating scales that look at things like attention, social skills, and like anxiety and things like that. So those are the pieces that we need to collect from a testing standpoint. And then we'll also ask for things like references, copies of IEP or 504 if there is one. If there's a school counselor or private therapist, there's a summary for them to complete and submit. Report cards and IEP progress reports. And there are other things on the checklist there. So you do the application online, and once you turn it in, someone from our office will keep in touch with you about the records that we need to collect. And once we have everything, we will let you know, and we'll do our review process, and we'll be in touch. And if you are applying for the school year, there is a screening and interview process. that we will call you about if we feel like we're going to likely be a good fit. Once we've reviewed all the records, we would be in touch about setting up that individual appointment. Okay, and we can answer more questions about that after we get through the whole presentation if you have more questions. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about now what is really unique about Landmark and our programs here and the day-to-day. So our approach here is a language-based approach, which means that we are skill-based. So that means that we have direct and explicit instruction that is consistent across curriculum, and that's really what makes it work. That's what's different than, a public school setting or a traditional private school where there might be some academic support, or in a public school where you get some pullout, is that it's not consistent across curriculum. Every teacher here is a language-based special ed teacher. So there's not just a math teacher, a history teacher, a science teacher. They're also a language-based special ed trained teacher. So it's consistent teaching methodology across curriculum. And we're going to talk more about that. Okay. So part of our day-to-day and part of the class schedule here is that every student that comes to us that demonstrates any gaps in basic literacy, they're going to have a one-to-one language arts tutorial in their schedule. The classes here are 50 minutes each. It's the same set schedule every day. It does not rotate. We're not on a block schedule or a 6-day cycle or anything like that. If a student were to have their tutorial scheduled first period, they're going to have that Monday through Friday first period for 50 minutes. And in the tutorial, the goal is to remediate the language and literacy skills, and it's based off a diagnostic of goals that is very prescriptive in nature, and it's completely individualized. So no two tutorials will look exactly the same. For a student who comes to us way behind in basic reading, they might be utilizing a lot of the Linda Mood Bell Lips program, for example, where they're building that basic sound symbol correspondence for phonological awareness for word attack and encoding and decoding skills. For a student who is beyond that level and maybe needs more work on fluency, they'll be doing some read naturally and some lead for encoding and bringing in maybe some elements of Wilson and doing some other landmark, generated materials. We don't want to have just one tool in the toolbox. Not one program works best for everybody. But we want to really tailor the tutorial and individualize it and focus on areas of reading, spelling, writing, oral expression if appropriate, vocabulary development, and study skills, and bring that all into the tutorial, as appropriate for each student. And again, it's highly individualized, and it's its own class for 50 minutes each day. So that's the tutorial. The classroom here at Landmark is unique in that the average size of the class here is 6 to 8, and we do not go beyond 8 in the classroom for a couple of reasons. One, first of all, we want the students to really have the time to be able to collaborate and to be able to really get involved with their teacher, to ask questions and to feel like they're getting the individualized support that they need. But also, we are an approved program in the state of Massachusetts, and about half of our students are funded by local districts. So we actually cannot go beyond 8 in the classroom. That's as large as we can go. That's our class size. The other thing that's really important and unique about how we schedule our classes here is that we're grouping students based on ability level and not worried about per grade. So it's not, all ninth graders staying together and all 10th graders staying together and all 11th graders staying together. We get that question all the time in the admission office if like our junior class is full or our sophomore class is full. And that's not how we admit students. We admit students until we're full as a high school or until all our tutorial teaching periods are full, that type of thing. Um, so, again, that's, it's not to say we're taking our 18 and 19-year-old seniors and putting them with our 14-year-old freshmen, but grade up, grade down, we're looking at things like levels of literacy and working memory and processing speed and language output and all of those skills when we do the groupings. We want our students to feel like when they're in math and they're in science and they're in history and they're in language arts, that they really are with a cohort of students that are moving at the same pace as them, that it's the right level of challenge while not feeling overwhelmed, that the teacher feels like they can really gauge the homework load appropriately. All of those things are happening because it's the right pace for them and they really feel like they're with like students, that are at the same skill level. We do parallel the mass curriculum frameworks. Students are going through typical high school curriculum and content that they would at any public high school. It's just that the delivery is different. So, yes, they're taking bio and chem, US and world history, algebra 1, 2 geometry. So they're doing all of those classes. It's just that, again, that, it's content through skills. So, and they're learning this content from teachers who, again, they're not just math and science and history teachers, they're teachers who are also language-based special ed teachers who have a master's in special education. Okay, so now let's talk about how we really individualize a program for each student at Landmark. So there is a core curriculum here where every student gets language arts. We know in high school you take 4 years of English language arts to focus on grammar and writing, and everybody takes a math and a science and a social science or history classes. And there is room in the day for an elective. We want our students to get a break from the academics and enjoy something fun, a passion that they want to pursue. And I'll get to all that fun stuff, I promise, with, our amazing visual arts and performing arts and the PE related and the technology and all that fun stuff. So we're going to get there. And so there's an elective in the day. So right now we see listed 4 academics, and there are actually 6 academics in the day. So what are the other 2? And this is where we really want to customize a student's schedule. So for a lot of our kids, the largest majority of our students, they are receiving this one-to-one tutorial, which was the first thing that I had mentioned in the beginning of our slides here with the academics. Most of our kids are coming to Landmark needing the one-to-one. And then I also mentioned how probably like a third of our students are also demonstrating difficulties with the oral output of language, and they may be receiving that oral expression class as well. If they don't need that, they may be receiving a study skills class to specifically further support the executive function, although I mentioned again, that's embedded in everything we do across curriculum, even if they don't have that class specifically. They may be getting an extra reading class if they are, again, significantly behind with the basic literacy skills. So it might be the one-to-one tutorial and an additional small group reading class. They may be receiving an extra literature class in their schedule. So let's say we have a student coming to Landmark that may not be classically dyslexic, and let's say they don't need the one-to-one tutorial at all. Let's say we have a student who's really primarily struggling with the executive function skills and the essay writing skills. So that student, may be scheduled for a study skills class and a literature class and may not be getting the tutorial. And that can happen as well. And we have students every year who are doing that with their schedule. So again, we really want to customize. We really want to move students along in the areas where they excel. We have these different lanes and programs within our high school. It's a college preparatory high school as a whole. And again, if a student starts at a certain level or program within our high school and they make gains and certain skills become remediated and they're ready to drop the tutorial after a year or two, then they can do that, you know. So we're always assessing and again, moving students along. And, you know, if we have a math whiz kid who can handle advanced calculus by senior year, we have it. If we have a student that really struggles in math, and needs a type of math class senior year that's more practical for figuring out if something's 30% off at the store and how to balance their checkbook, we have that too. So again, we have all of these different levels of programming within all of the different content area classes to meet kids where they are and to move them along in the areas where they excel. And that's a luxury we have here at Landmark within our curriculum, which is great. Okay, moving along. I mentioned the executive functioning, time management, organization of materials and information. Again, cross curriculum. We're really reinforcing the study skills, and here are some examples. The 2-column note method, how to take 2-column notes with main ideas and details, teaching that 5-step writing process, whether they're doing a paper for LA or history. How do you go from a brainstorm to an outline to a rough draft to an edit to a final draft? How do you effectively preview relevant vocabulary, whether it's in science class or history class? You know, and how do you paraphrase and summarize information? And what are good, effective test taking strategies? We're trying to teach these skills in a consistent way so that students can internalize these strategies, they can become more automatic, and the students can implement them in an independent way so we can start to remove some of this structure. The goal is to have all these amazing tools in their toolbox that they can take with them to post-secondary level or whatever they're doing for the rest of their lives, and they don't need the direct instruction anymore. They can just really apply these skills independently when they leave us. Homework at Landmark. We give it every night. And the goal is to practice and review skills that they have learned in class that day. And it is really a different experience for most students than what they've had previously you know, when they first prior to coming here, excuse me. You know, usually it's been like a struggle before they come to Landmark, and now it's like, oh, this is work I can actually do on my own. It's not a source of frustration. It's actually really manageable. I don't need to ask my parents to help me with this, or if they're living here, you know, we do have teachers on coverage in the dorms that can help them, but a lot of the times they don't need that help. Maybe they need a reminder around time management or to switch from one assignment to the next, but usually they're pretty independent with it. And they can feel successful because, again, the teacher's able to gauge what they can handle in a certain amount of time. And it's a review of skills and things they've worked on in class that day. So they do feel successful and independent with their homework. So that's how we structure homework, and we do hold them accountable. There is a homework makeup policy after school. If they miss an assignment, they do go after school to make it up. Okay. Another great component of our programming here at Landmark is the role of the advisor, the academic advisor who oversees the student's schedule. They work really closely with the tutorial teacher to set up the diagnostic of goals in the tutorial, and they write IEPs for any funded students in their caseload. The advisors teach as well part of the day, but they are the liaison for the family and for the student. They stay with the student during their years here and get to know them really well, and it's your main contact person. And then, you know, another main goal for us here at Landmark is to really prepare students for what comes next. And we have an amazing transition and guidance office here at Landmark. We start doing stuff with students as soon as they enter at Landmark High School with transition planning. And then starting junior year, students are assigned a guidance counselor where they will have weekly meetings. They really engage in personalized support to work on identifying what types of schools would be appropriate, what are the students' passions and interests, and really taking them through that process of figuring out, again, what's going to be the right fit, requesting applications, writing the essay, getting the recommendations, really soup to nuts. And also helping them with, the SATs, ACTs, if they want to do that. We do a senior capstone, the final trimester of school, where they're involved with an internship type project. Here's a small sampling of some of the colleges our students have gone to. There's a more extensive list on our website. Usually around 94% of our students attend. All of the students that apply get accepted. And then some of our students are choosing other options like a gap year or military or trade. But most of our students are choosing to explore post-secondary options. We are also very fortunate. The Endicott College is right next door to Landmark High School. So we do have dual enrollment opportunities in a partnership with Endicott. We do teach a college, offer, I should say we don't teach, but we offer, and Landmark teaches, or Endicott teaches, excuse me, a college class here at Landmark. On Tuesday, Thursday, a number of our seniors are enrolled in taking a class here for credit. And we also have another program called the Van Loan program, where some of our juniors and seniors are taking an evening class for a 7-week period over at Endicott. So there are some opportunities for our students to get some college credit. There are also some internship opportunities. Some of our students in years past that have expressed interest, especially in certain trades, because we have, for example, like a working auto mechanic shop on campus, woodworking, and some of our students that have expressed interest in those areas have actually done internships at places like that senior year, off-site in the afternoon if they have enough course credit to go work and get some experience in those areas off-site as well. Okay, so let's talk about after school. I'm trying to see the time here and how I'm doing. So I want to mention our school days from 7:50 to 3:15. I mentioned about how half of our students, a little more than half, commute and half our students live here. And our day students are welcome to be here for all of our meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They can be on campus as much as they want. And for our students who live here, they are required to participate in afternoon activities. The structure is set up so that when classes get out at 3:15, they have time to go back to their dorm, change into athletic gear or whatever they want for their afternoon activity, and head off to that. And then they would go to their activity, which takes them pretty much until dinner time. And then after dinner, there is some free time. And then at 7:30, they check back into their house or the dorm. And then 7:30 to 8 is a designated half hour of room clean time. 8 to 9:30 is the structured study hall. 9:30, they have to stay in their house, but then they have some more downtime until their lights out. And that depends on what level they are on. We work on a level system. So let's talk about that a little bit. The level system and earning privileges. So within the houses, we are trying to promote effective time management, organization, self-advocacy, and healthy decision-making. We're really supporting these life skills for our students And honestly, for kiddos that have lived here in the houses in residence, when they go off to college, if they go off to college, they really do have a leg up with their ability to successfully navigate, manage their time, problem solve, do their laundry, all of these things, and navigate all of that successfully, and have a great experience. And it really helps for things like during structured study hall with their homework completion and all of that. Our teachers that teach here during the day are the same folks that are running the dorms and living here in the houses and all of that. It's not a separate group of people. So they know your students, and they know how to support them well. And we have kids from all over the US and international students as well. I highly recommend, if your student is going to have more than a 45-minute or hour plus commute every day, it really can be a long, exhausting day. And having that opportunity to be here during the week and live here, and then they can go home on the weekends, it really is a nice opportunity rather than having a long day and oftentimes staying here, through supper, waiting until after rush hour, heading home late at night just to do homework, sleep, and get up early the next morning and do it all again. So thinking about residential placement during the week is a really nice thing if that's an option for you. But just know, if you are going to commute during the week, you can really be on campus as much as you want. So let's talk for a second about pursuing your passions and all the fun stuff after school. We have an amazing visual arts department with all kinds of 2D, 3D media art, drawing, painting, printmaking, ceramics, the graphic design and digital illustration, photography. So these are classes students can take as an elective during the school day, or they can be up in the art room after school, doing activities then. We also have a great gallery space on campus as well. We have great performing arts with music and chorus and dance, drama, theater tech, with lighting and sound and set design and costume design. There are a number of theater productions throughout the year, musical, dance performances, open mic nights and solo nights and things like that happening. So again, these are options as elective classes during the day, or things to be involved with after school as activities. We have athletic programs after school. We have JV and varsity sports in the fall, soccer, cross country, golf, and girls volleyball. In the winter, there is indoor track, basketball, wrestling. There is also, just for fun, a Saturday ski and snowboard club. In the spring, there's lacrosse, tennis, baseball, outdoor track and field, and sailing. So those are the sports we have. And it's the All Girls Conference and the Eastern Independent League for boys. We also have a working auto shop on campus with welding, and we have woodworking and boat building. We have computer technology and programming type classes, and STEAMwork robotic type stuff. We have gym elective and weightlifting and yoga. So there's all kinds of classes to get involved with in clubs. We've had chess club, we've had cooking club in the past, fishing club, we have mountain biking trails on our campus, kids doing all kinds of community service activities. And our location is amazing because we're 30 minutes north of Boston. So we have all kinds of weekend activities happening. We go into the city for sports and theater events. We go hiking. We go to the beaches when the weather's nice. We're near amusement parks. We're right near the movie theater and the mall, and bowling and rock wall climbing and paintballing and laser tag and um, you know, but jumpies, sky zone, things like that. So it's all kinds of stuff for the kids to do here. They're never stuck here with nothing going on. And in the summertime, I think that's the next thing to get to. We have this amazing 4-week summer program. Students entering grades 8 through 12 come to the high school campus. So different from the fall where it's grades 9 through 12. Summer is grades 8 through 12. It's 4 weeks and the classes are 1 hour each. 4 classes in the morning until lunchtime. Everybody gets the one-to-one tutorial, language arts, math, and then either a reading or a study skills class, depending upon what the student needs. And then there's study hall in the afternoon, and then fun stuff after that. So it feels more like camp. Students pick from one of the activities for the 4 weeks. They can take a photography uh, for the summer activity. They can do fitness, marine explorations. They can do sea kayaking and paddleboarding or visual arts. And then there's a theme each night with maybe like a, volleyball and cookout at the beach or different stuff going on at the upper field with games and activities. And there's great trips on the weekends. And that's my whole presentation for now. And I'm going to get out of this and stop here and then see if we have Amanda here to, I don't know, let's see, I'm going to introduce, let's see, we have Ariel Martin Cohn, our academic dean is here, and Andrea Mead, our assistant dean of students is here, which is great. And I think, were we going to have them talk first, Amanda, and then the students, or were we going to have the students go first? What was the
Yeah,
pecking
I've got
order here?
some students are coming in the next 10 minutes or so. So Ariel and Andrew, happy to hear from you if you want to introduce yourselves and just tell us about what you do here.
That would be great. Thank you, guys.
Sure. So I'm Ariel. I'm the academic dean. I believe this is my 19th year at the high school. I've had the opportunity to teach in a bunch of different departments. I worked in the student life program or student life department with Andrea for some of my first couple of years. And I'm really glad to be working with the academic program now. I think, Mel, you overview so many parts of the program and how we approach scheduling and really individualized both what your child is taking for classes and then the work they're doing within those classes. So I echo all of that information. I think what's really cool is what we're working on this year is thinking about how do we want to grow and evolve our offerings, our courses, our approaches, so that kids are both accessing remediation to develop their skills, but not missing out on opportunities to develop skills for what's coming next for them as professionals, whether they go to college or into the world of work. So, we're talking a lot about AI and different technologies and discovering passions and building a capstone program for seniors to spend time off campus at the end of their time with us. And that's really been invigorating to think about how to help kids come in or facilitate kids coming in having not gotten the support or services they need and help them really leap ahead to thinking about what they want to do after high school and where they want to grow. So that's a cool series of conversations happening on campus in addition to the programming that we've always traditionally offered.
Welcome. I'm Andrea Mead. I'm one of the assistant deans of students here at Landmarks High School. I've been at Landmark for about 26 years now. I also teach in the science department, so I teach chemistry to mostly juniors. And I'm also here as a parent, so I have a son who started at Landmark in grade 6 and then graduated this past spring from Landmarks High School. So welcome.
We also have 2 parents that are on. We have Jen Johnson is here and then Christy Hudson. If you guys want to just maybe introduce yourselves and just mention where you're from and what grades your kids are currently in, that would be super helpful as well. And lots of parent perspectives going on here tonight, but it's really great to have everyone.
I can go first. My name's Christy Hudson, and my daughter Anna is a sophomore in the residential program at Landmark. We are from Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'll just real quick say that she's been involved in the soccer team and the basketball team, is looking forward to playing lacrosse this spring. So has been very, very active in the athletics. And I'm just happy to answer any questions that you might have from a parental perspective and from a boarding perspective.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Johnson. My daughter started here at EMS in the 7th grade and we transitioned over to the high school. She's a senior this year. So I can give a great perspective if anybody has any questions about just how Landmark does. What I'll say is a great job of transitioning from a safe environment of being in a school where you're given structure to actually like prepare you for college. Because obviously it's a big jump for anybody, but for our kiddos, it's a little bit bigger. We are not a border. We actually live about 30 miles south of Landmark. So my daughter commutes back and forth each day. So I can give, if anybody has any questions, I can give that perspective.
Awesome. Amanda, I see a couple questions in the chat. Do you want me to roll through answering the ones that are academic?
Yeah, that'd be super helpful. Thank you.
Okay. These are great questions and they might springboard into other ones. So you can feel free to add or kind of refine if I didn't quite answer what you were looking for. So there's one question about funding agreements and the distinction between Massachusetts districts and out-of-state districts. We do sometimes have students come to us with funding agreements from other states. We have some students that have come to us from Maine, from Vermont, sometimes from New York. I think that's kind of the extent of it. It can be pretty complicated to find, to get funding out of state, but it's the same argument of can your state or can your town provide the services that your child needs. We have an office, a public school liaison office that can provide some additional information. The admissions office can provide some information about that too. But we definitely try and stay in our lane of what Landmark provides. And we can offer some other folks that can help you in the process if you're seeking funding or just want to know kind of what that would entail. We don't currently have any study abroad programs, but there are definitely initiatives and plans each year to go traveling with students. Last year, some faculty members took a group of students to Costa Rica. Is that accurate? Is that right? For their service trip. For a number of years, students went to Jamaica. We've taken kids to DC, taking kids to Europe. We take the seniors to Disney every spring. So there's definitely an initiative to get back to traveling with students. There was much more travel with students before COVID, and it's taken some time to relearn that process. But there's no formal study abroad like spending a semester in a different country or in a different program. We don't have a foreign language requirement. And the majority of our students, almost all, because of their documented language-based learning disability, will be eligible for a waiver for any college foreign language requirement. We do have a really wonderful American Sign Language course that kids will take either out of interest or if they want to look at schools that expect some additional language instruction, that can often take that place. We don't offer Spanish language instruction or French or other primary second languages that English-speaking students would learn, but we certainly want to support students either if that's the language of their family or if they've got an interest in it, if there's faculty on campus who speak that language, or if they want to pursue summer programming, we can help them look for those opportunities, but that's not part of our curriculum or course guide. And then there's a great question about math. So most freshmen start in Algebra 1. If they're really strong in math, that's an area of an aptitude. Sophomore year, we might recommend that they take geometry and Algebra 2 together, which means junior year they could take pre-calc and senior year they could take calculus. We do have some students that are able to take calculus 2 in senior year, which obviously means they took calculus in junior year. Those would probably be students who come to us with higher math on their transcript or have kind of an exceptional schedule, but we definitely get students to calculus by senior year if that's a desire and an area of interest. And then we've updated our PE requirement. They don't have to do an interscholastic like lacrosse, soccer sport each trimester, but they have to engage yearly in some form of physical education. So that could be a sports team. It could be a PE class, PE, yoga, outdoor leadership, dance. It could be an after-school activity through student life, rock climbing, the weight room, mountain biking. And there's a few other opportunities as well. Some of our students from Massachusetts, if they're a member of their town's ice hockey team, softball, football, we can support participation in that home district's sport if we don't offer it at Landmark. And then I'm going to skip to one question about dyscalculia. And then Jennifer, there's a great parent question about why you chose Landmark. So the dyscalculia question, our math department works really hard to create the same language-based environment that our language arts classroom or history classrooms create, and provide a lot of multimodal supports, visual supports, familiar routines, tangible manipulative resources to help students understand the underlying concept and then apply it to lots of different problems and develop those skills in a remedial way, just like we do in language arts. But that's definitely a big piece of programming that we want to continue to work on and improve, because math skills are really crucial. And I think that's a place where we can always continue to look to work with students and families and figure out what they need to improve. So for Christy and Jennifer, do you guys want to speak to why you chose Landmark? What that decision was like for you?
Yeah. So for us, we were fortunate. We live in the area, so there's lots of different schools. I won't throw the other schools that are around. But my family, we actually did have the opportunity to attend a few of them, trying to find out whether or not it was through summer camps or other ways of doing it. The reason we chose is that, we hired, like everybody else, we hired a really good team to help support us to navigate through this. And the answer came back in every situation was like, Landmark is where you want to be. This is where she can make the most progress. So, believe me, when you're trying to move out of a district, so I am one of those kind of, an agreement type of families. So it's a journey. But there is happiness at the end when you see a kid really happy and succeeding. And I would not, from what people had told me years ago where my daughter would be right now, she got accepted. She got applied at all 8 schools, and she got accepted at all 8 schools. She got accepted at honors programs, 3 honors programs. So it really has made a difference. So it's a no-brainer for us, actually.
Our journey's a little different and a little bit the same. So I'm originally from Massachusetts, and my mom was in the public school systems. And so when we started struggling with the language-based learning disabilities down here in North Carolina, Landmark was on my radar screen because of my mother's experience in sending some of her students to Landmark. And I also have friends that I went to college with who are public school teachers, and they say nothing but amazing things about the programming that Landmark does for public school teachers and that sort of thing. So for us, when we looked at it in 7th grade, and it was a huge thought process that we had to go through, and really understanding what it looks like to send your daughter away, when she's a freshman in high school. So we looked at the school again in 8th grade. And then if you guys haven't had the opportunity to listen to some of Josh Clark, who's the headmaster, some of his talks about what Landmark, what the goals for the Landmark students are, I would just highly encourage you to do that, because that's what sold us on the overall philosophy of the school. And I will echo what Jen just said. It is a life-altering trajectory that our daughter is on. I think prior to this, when she was in middle school, we didn't know if college would even be a topic of conversation. And she's a sophomore now, and I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that we will be applying to schools her senior year, and she has a really amazing future that is so much more rounded out by everything that she's been able to experience at Landmark that she just never would have been able to do here at home.
Thanks so much for sharing. Real quick, I also want to just add to the conversation here. Of course, feel free to pop in with questions really anywhere. But I have 4 students that are currently here on this meeting as well. So I'm going to ask them to somehow amongst the 4 of them, coordinate with yourselves, but to go around and just introduce yourselves. So I would love if you could all say your name, what grade you're in, where you're from and if you're a day student or a resident. There's a lot going on, so try your best.
I can go first.
Thanks, Luca.
My name is Luca Meunier. I am a boarder here at Landmark. I'm a senior. Um, and I'm from Fitchburg, Massachusetts.
My name is Greg. I'm from Framingham, Massachusetts. I'm a day student. So
Hi, my name is Lola. I'm a boarder. I'm from Savannah, Georgia, and I'm in 12th grade.
Ella, I can't hear you, honey.
Yeah, I couldn't either. I thought it was just me, maybe.
She got it.
Ella, do you want to leave and come back, maybe? If you guys have questions for students, please feel free, or just other questions in general. That's totally fine.
While she's figuring out audio, Ella's a junior who's a day student from Wenham, and has had a great experience.
Ariel, there was a parent that asked me a question, not to the whole group,
Yeah.
but privately, and I wasn't positive the answer, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it was just about if a family's from Canada and they get a diploma from Landmark, does that translate fine to Canada?
I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know.
I
So
feel like
for Massachusetts schools, if students are funded, part of the agreement is that the school like accepts Landmark graduation requirements towards meeting that district's graduation requirements. So if students previous to this year and the rules around MCAS are state standardized tests changing, as long as students had passed MCAS and met Landmark's requirements, then they'd be eligible for 2 diplomas, Landmark's and their funding districts. We're figuring out what the changes to MCAS are going to mean to that process. But typically schools, if they're sending a kid to us, will accept our diploma as meeting their expectations. We'd certainly work with any international school or organization to figure out what they need to see and if we're able to provide it. But our diploma definitely stands as meeting Landmark School's expectations and represents that they've completed a full course of study as a high school graduate. So my hope is that that would work out okay.
yeah, I feel like we've had students from Canada in the past and that they've gone on to higher education.
Great, but we can
Fine,
definitely talk
so,
more about that separately.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask, hi, Kim Olson and Christy, we're in Cornelius, North Carolina. I just wanted to ask you, how often does your daughter come home?
That's a really, really important question. It totally depends. And a lot of it depends on her and her social schedule. But Landmark does have a long weekend, extended long weekend in October and again in April. You have your standard, 3-day weekends, and the school breaks are really nice and long. And I think, to get the boarders home and have some good time at home. So I feel like we see her every 6 weeks at a minimum. And on top of that, we're flying to Boston, and it's a really easy flight to catch soccer games and basketball games and that sort of thing too. So honestly, it's as much or as little as they want.
I wanted to ask anyone on the staff, what happens on the weekends? I mean, is there security at the school? Is it something, do the kids just have the option to go off campus whenever they want? Is it something where it's monitored so no one's coming in and taking them out? Or
So
Andrea?
on the weekends, yeah, so once you drop your child off with us, we require your written permission for them to be able to leave campus. So if they were looking to leave to say go home for the weekend, they would fill out paperwork. It's called a weekend pass. And then we would wait for your email permission allowing them to leave. And then we help you arrange transportation. So we have some students will get picked up by a parent. Others will take the train home or take a plane home. And we work with families around, organizing rides to the airport or to the train station. And we all,
day by day thing. So if she wanted to, if we came up one weekend, she would sign out the permission said that week. It's not for the whole year. She can just go off campus whenever she wants.
Correct. So every time they want to leave, they fill out the paperwork and we would get permission from you. Yes. And then we have parents will come up, or maybe you have family in the area that you want to give permission for your child to go out with. Again, someone could come and pick them up, but we wouldn't allow them to leave unless they completed their paperwork and we heard explicitly from you that you were giving them permission to leave. And there are lots of activities on the weekends. I mean, any of these guys, the students can speak to that. There's different activities going on throughout the weekends. And there's always, you had asked about like supervision kind of, so there's always a team of staff that are working throughout the weekend, and the student life office that's open so that you have access to that number if you want to reach us here. But there's staff working on the weekends that are taking students out on trips and also monitoring them in the dormitories.
Can I call on Lola and Luca here to share some of and Ella and Greg as well, if you guys have any, but any weekend or after school activities, things that happen here on campus that are your favorite? Sure, you could come up with one. You guys have been to one.
One of my favorite trips that happens every now and then, we do like these mystery trips where like a teacher will take you somewhere like surprise. And one time it was like a mystery trip and I signed up. I was like, I don't know what to expect. And then we got ice cream, we went like go-karting and stuff. Just like all the fun stuff. But it was a great time, especially when you're with all your friends and it's kind of weird at first because you're with a teacher and like your teacher's taking you places, but you get along with the teacher like really well. Um, so yeah, mystery trips are really fun, and I don't know, the weekend trips here are a great way to like connect with like everyone. I feel like it's very inclusive, so yeah, it's good stuff.
As a commuter, after school, after sports and stuff, we have the option to go home. But quite honestly, I've tagged along in some of the trips and I've actually really enjoyed them. And it's definitely been like well worth like spending an extra 30 minutes, an extra hour or so, depending on how long it is. And it's also a great way to meet like new people. It's not a huge campus, but you can still like get stuck in like a little rut with your friends. And personally, I've really enjoyed meeting some people and made some pretty good friendships that way.
An activity that we're actually doing on Wednesday to celebrate the end of exams is that we're going to go skating. Anyone after, I think it's at 7:30. So if day students want to stay and also boarders, we're gonna go ice skating. And I also really like when we go to sports events that are like landmark, but also like off campus. So we're supporting our team, but also like getting off campus.
So the skating we're doing tomorrow night to celebrate the end of exams, we have a pond on campus that the staff have checked to make sure that it was frozen over. And the students in our auto class actually made a homemade Zamboni and they have been like smoothing out the ice. So they're getting it ready tomorrow. They've been watching the temperatures fiercely, making sure that it doesn't melt and that it's ready for tomorrow.
Greg and Lola and Luca and Ella, there's a question that I think would be great for you guys to answer just from your experience as students. And I can speak to it from an academic perspective as well. But the question is, what support systems are in place to help bridge the academic and social gap for students coming from different economic and ethnic backgrounds? So you guys are all a member of the student community. Do you feel like there's opportunities to talk to kids who have had different experiences from you or come from different places or backgrounds? Did you feel supported when you came into the community? And it's okay if it wasn't perfect or it wasn't easy.
Someone who is of color, I am Asian. I am part of the, I forgot what letters it is. GSA, nope. Uh, Students of
There's,
Color Affinity Group.
yep, there's students of color and then there's LGBTQIA plus affinity. Yep.
I am also gay, but that's unrelated. And we try to meet once or twice a month, and we are just able to connect over things that have happened, like within the community that is either like needs some fixing or just like connecting with like a bad experience or a good experience.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's just a great way to be like, hey, I see you, you see me, we're doing great. So I think in that way, like that's a great way to connect with students.
That's great. Those groups are run by a faculty member who serves as our DEI coordinator. So she runs two different groups on a monthly rotating basis and coordinates with our director of community culture and well-being. So it's definitely been something we've tried to put a lot of time and effort into always at Landmark, making kids feel included and supported, but being a little bit more intentional and proactive over the past 5 years or so, so that every student feels like they've got a place and someone who sees them and knows what their experience is like. Andrea, you can confirm my numbers here, but gender ratio, we're typically about 60% male, 40% female. I don't know if we're right there this year. And then boarding to day student, it's traditionally been about 50-50. The population's shifted a little bit post-COVID because we closed the residential program for 1 year. And I think it's probably actually similar, about 60% day, 40% residential.
I think that's accurate too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The question about ABC, is that a better chance? Is that the acronym? Okay, I don't think we are, but we can certainly talk about all the different ways that we can help students support our program and access Landmark in whatever ways feasible. But we're not a part of that organization right now, I don't think. Andrea, there's a transportation question. Do we take kids down to South Station every weekend or only on long weekends?
We do every weekend. So some schools, some more traditional schools have like open or closed campuses where students are like mandated to stay on campus. At Landmark, we don't do that. So there are one weekend a month. We do have Saturday school that runs for a half a day on Saturdays. We do 8 Saturdays throughout the school year. So on those weekends, the students, most students will stay, residents will stay on campus. But typically residential students can go home any weekends they would like. So typically we do a South Station run on Friday afternoon. We do one right after school, and then we also offer one later in the evening for students who play sports and need to get to South Station after athletics. And then we do a pickup on Sunday night from South Station. And then on Saturday school weekends, that South Station run, instead of being on Friday, since we have school on Saturday morning, we do it on Saturday afternoon at around 12:30 when Saturday school ends.
And is there a fee for that bus? I can't remember.
There is, it's something ridiculous, like $15 to get to South Station and then another 15, I think, to get back. So it's much cheap. The transportation when you do it through Landmark is much cheaper than if you use Uber or Lyft or something like that.
Great. The financial aid question is a really good one. I'm going to say that Mel or Amanda and the admissions team are the best ones to answer that one.
So regarding financial aid, there is a limited pool that we have to work with every year. It's not huge, I'll be honest, but there is some financial aid. And we encourage families to apply. The platform that we use is called Clarity. And if you go to the Landmark website, to the admission tab, you will see on the drop down menu, Fording Landmark. And you go to that, and about halfway down, you'll see, the description, and it says like apply here, and you click the here, it links you to Clarity. So that's the platform that's used, and you can fill out the application. It doesn't take too long to do. And actually now is the time to do that as quickly as possible, because the financial aid committee will be meeting the first week in March. So even if you haven't applied to Landmark yet or finished getting your application to us, it would be great to work on your Clarity application and get us the financials as soon as possible. And again, I will be honest, it's typically not a huge amount compared to the cost of tuition, but there is some financial aid available. Again, usually more available for families looking for boarding versus day. Again, being honest with you about that, but it's worth going through the process with us for sure, to see if you qualify. And we want to encourage all families to do that. And to not apply to Landmark for financial reasons, to always like apply and go through the process with us, because it's worth working with us to see what we can do always.
There's a couple follow-up questions, Mel,
Okay.
and which you can answer, but do we publish statistics on the approximate amount of aid awarded each year?
That I am not positive
think we do.
about.
Yep.
The answer to that question. Lisa Pellrine is our Director of Enrollment Management, and she sits on the Financial Aid Committee. So she would be the person to reach out to about that, or our business office. So I would be happy to connect you to her with that information. She can reach out. So reach out to our admission office about that. Just
Okay.
email admission@landmarkschool.org, and we will funnel with your questions about that, and we'll funnel you to the right person to answer that question.
Great.
And then in terms of, I have a question here, we've already done Clarity a month ago for another student. Do we have to add your name to the Clarity to obtain our financials? I believe so. Yes, I think you need to go in and put Landmark in there. Yes.
Students, there was a great question for you guys too, of what are our annual traditions? What do you remember doing each year, or something you look forward to, something that repeats or is kind of part of our routine?
Dodgeball. Dodgeball is a great time. I think we should do that more often. Should be a yearly thing. But I'm excited for that one. Yeah.
That's great.
Along those lines, I would say that we do flag football
Mhm.
In like late November, which
Mhm.
is a great opportunity to just hang out.
One of my
Yeah.
favorites is Thanksgiving. We
Yeah.
do at school, which is it's really fun. It's family style, so you and all your friends will sit down at a table, and teachers will come and serve you food, and it's usually like Thanksgiving type of food, so it's really good, and it's a definitely is different pace, at least for students.
That's a great one. That's a nice event.
I would say along the lines of like the sports, we have like a big volleyball tournament where the teachers and faculty, or the faculty and students, come together and they make their own teams and have a big round against each other, and then the championship, the all the like students come and watch the big championship game, which is like a big, I feel like, get together time for the whole school.
That's an awesome answer. We've started doing community assemblies on Fridays. We try and do about one a month, which is a really nice opportunity to come together. we try and do something silly or goofy and then recognize folks who are illustrating our school's values. We've got pep rallies, we do dances. There's our performing arts department is awesome. So a lot of our traditions are unique and special to us, but will feel pretty familiar from other independent school experiences. There was one other academic question I was going to go back to of, do all of our classes take place in the classroom, or are there any examples of out of the box learning? So I'll share what I think, but students, if you guys went on a really awesome field trip or did a really cool project with someone, it'd be great to know what that was. So our program carries the real serious responsibility of providing remediation and individualized instruction. So we take classroom instruction really seriously, and we really want to use those 50 minutes a day in each class to give as much support and instruction as we can. And we try and seek opportunities to get out of the classroom or engage in collaborative project work, use our students' creativity when we can. So teachers put together really awesome field trips. They collaborate with other people they know in the community, or bring in experts, or have classes work together. They have faculty come in to talk to classes. So there's definitely an effort to think out of the box while the priority is that direct classroom instruction. Greg, Lola, do you have one?
For my LA class, this might not sound exciting at first, but hold on. We went to court.
Mm-hmm.
And we sat in on a cold case murder trial from I don't know what year. And even though it was boring during the time, being able to just like look back at the information, and then also we brought in the prostitution, the one of the
Prosecution.
lawyers,
Yeah.
and they were able to talk about the case, like not anything like too personal, but like the case, and also just like the job in general. And it was a senior class, so we got to know more about like what how they got into their job, and like how they actually got into their field. And that was a really interesting case, but I got yelled at by the security officer because I started falling asleep in court.
It's a good real world experience. Ella or Greg or Luca, any cool projects that you've been able to do in electives or as field trips?
In my biochem of food science class, it's all based on like food and like the food system and like how it affects your body. So we went to a like local farm, and they showed us like the whole process of how they like manage their food, and like taught us about the animals and just like kind of all about it, which was like a good like understanding of how like connecting our class information that we learn about, and then connecting it to like how it's actually used in like the real world. So I thought that was like a good way to like understand it, like, and see it like visually and like physically, rather than like, and like be able to connect it to what I had learned in class.
That's awesome. That's a great class.
Yeah, last
Greg.
last year we in my English class we read one of the books by Stanley Tucci, someone who is imprisoned. And after we read the book, my teacher, staying along the lines of criminal justice, we got to go to a police station in Beverly, and we met a lot of the police officers there, and we got to see like the local Beverly police station, which I'm happy to say that's the only ever time I've been locked behind the bars. Hopefully the only ever time. But it was definitely it was really fun and really knowledge. I learned a lot from it. So
That's awesome. Thanks, Greg. There's a question about technology I'll answer, but Amanda or Mel, there's a question about, can the admissions application be accessed on SAO?
Should know what SAO is, but I
think
don't.
it's private school
The application for
Yeah.
Landmark School has to be accessed through the Landmark School website.
So the technology question's a really good one. I can speak to the classroom technology, and then I think, Andrea, maybe you can talk to like evening study hall supporting kids with their devices when it's bedtime. We ask that all students have access to a laptop. Our preference or our recommendation initially is a Chromebook. They're usually around $150 or $200, and they access Google easily, which is all we really need. We do have some available for students to use for the duration of the school year, if that's a benefit. Students are allowed to have their phones on them. We ask them to put their phone in a very unsophisticated phone box, which is just a giant Tupperware container at the beginning of every class, and they get them back at the end. There is a task force looking at cell phone use right now that's going to come up with some recommendations for what our policy should be in light of a ton of recent research and pushes for or against limiting student access to cell phones during the academic day. We are trying to increase our incorporation of or awareness of assistive technology tools across the program. Again, as I referenced AI, I talked to the librarian today who's going to talk to a company that's got great text-to-speech software. It's called Learning Ally, if you've ever heard of it, to see if we can get a school license for that to support students who like to listen in addition to the work that they're doing on paper. But all of that said, one of our key instructional practices is think to paper, and we are still a kind of paper and pencil oriented school in many ways. We want kids out of screens and into the classroom physically. So there's a lot of instruction that happens on paper, and there's a lot of instruction that also happens on a laptop. And we try and kind of maintain a balance of that that's supportive of students. And again, developing those like post-high school workplace skills. I want them to know how to navigate email, certainly, spreadsheets, doing internet research, being a reasonable keyboard typer. There's a lot of things that I want to make sure they've worked on while they're with us during the school day.
And then at nighttime during study hall, most students are using laptops or iPads for assignments. Some are still using paper and pencil for assignments. We do not take phones away at nighttime. So students are allowed to keep their phones in their rooms to charge in the evening. You know, we obviously have conversations with them about making sure they're getting enough sleep and that those phones are being put away so that they can get good rest. Sometimes we'll work with parents individually if there's an issue, if a student's falling asleep during the day, or we're finding that there are issues with homework or distraction with electronics, then we work individually with families to maybe put some tighter restrictions on students, but we try to encourage them to make healthy choices.
Awesome. I think, oh, that's Amanda and Mel. That's a good question for interviews, virtual or in person?
So we typically are meeting with students in person for a screening and interview process, unless we have a family from super far away and it's just going to be really difficult for a family to get to us in person. We can make arrangements to do that process virtually. But if it's at all possible for a family to get to us in person, we prefer to do it that way. But again, we can make arrangements to do it virtually if it's going to be a difficulty for a family to get here in person.
There's a question in there for students. I hear the food is great at Landmark. Do you all feel the same way?
I'd
I
say-
personally, Greg, wait,
No,
do
you go.
know?
You go.
Okay.
Yeah, you go.
I have had a positive experience with the Landmark food, especially I have celiac disease, so I can't have like any gluten, and the staff is really good about making sure that like if anyone has any allergies, they'll make sure that the food's safe for them to eat. And they also have like cards that say like if something has gluten, and then they're always like accessible that if you need to like ask someone if something's gluten free, like I'll ask if something's gluten free, they'll let me know. And it's just I've had like gluten-free food can also be like difficult to find things that are good or just like that I like, and I've had a positive experience with the food. So I feel like with my experience, it's been good.
Yeah, they also give us a wide variety of different foods. So usually, let's say it's lunchtime, they'll have the two hot carts. So you can put like chicken, there'll be rice, there could be, at dinner, there's always pasta. There's also a salad bar we have, so you can make yourself a salad, and there's sometimes other colder foods, I would say. There's also, you can make at breakfast and lunch, you can make waffles. And then there's also a place where you get drinks. And then there's also I don't know what we call like the bakery section. You can get like bread. So some pretty good options, a wide variety.
We're just about hitting that 8:02. I don't know if there are any last minute questions we can answer, but I do want to thank students, faculty, parents of students for giving their time this evening, and especially, obviously, all of the families who have joined us to hear more about Landmark School tonight. We really appreciate you guys joining in and listening to all the things we had to say about Landmark. We certainly love Landmark and wanted to share all the great things.
Melody, can I just answer one
Yeah.
question? Because having been a day student, you're so excited to get your application and your acceptance to Landmark. The next thing, if you're a local student, how do you get to school when you're trying to work and navigate? So having been in that situation, Landmark does a really good job of providing an option for us to be added onto a carpool list. They provide the list, and then it's up to us to kind of navigate that list and try and figure out and coordinate. There's also additional something that I was part of, some families that were, I'm from Woburn, so further down, like a Newton group, and there was a bunch of Burlington groups. We all joined together and we just partnered with a vendor and we did a private shuttle up to Landmark. And we were able to coordinate both the early drop off in the afternoon and then also the evening to support sports. So don't make that like something you have to hang up. There's always something that we can, like, there's always some way to get your kid to school. So.
And we do update every summer once all of the new families have been accepted and we know who's coming, and there's going to be an update to the directory every year so that you can start to network with people in your area and all of that. So that happens. If there are questions after this evening, please reach out. You can call the admission office. We can connect you to somebody else if you want to speak directly back with Ariel or Andrea or any parent or anybody in the business office or anybody else that we can connect you to. We're happy to do that.
Mel, there's one last question. If they're going to be here for the summer program, can their student interview for the fall while they're there for summer?
Yeah,
Is that
so
what
every
that question means, I think?
Yeah, every summer, we oftentimes will have, some families, some kids that end up expressing interest in staying for the school year, or they have a great summer, and hey, what about the idea of coming back for the fall? So that's certainly something that a student can do while they're here for the summer, or if they're interested now in a family in applying for both summer and fall, and it's most convenient to interview for the school year while they're here for the summer because they're from further away and it's difficult to make the trip twice, then yeah, we can definitely do the screening and interview in person appointment once they're here for the start of the summer. That's fine.
Great.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Again, we really appreciate it. Reach out with any questions. Thank you so much.